Persia, a name that makes one think of Oriental splendor, of the fairy tale fantasies of the Arabian Nights. Persia is a land of ancient glory, and today the world is learning to call it by its own ancient name, Iran. This is a larger country than most of us realize. Into it we could put France, Spain and Portugal, and the entire British Isles, and still have room to spare. Lying in Western Asia, Iran, or Persia, occupies an important strategic position between British India, Afghanistan, Soviet Russia, Turkey, and Iraq. In the drama of our rapidly changing world, no one knows how important a role Persia may have to play, how great her future may be. So let's take a look at this fascinating land today, as seen by the color cameras of the Thaw Asiatic Expedition. Mr. Lawrence Thaw himself will tell us about it. Okay, Mr. Thaw?
Certainly. A great part of Persia is either desert or rugged mountainous country. Our motor caravan consisted of a scout car and a camera trailer, a big 40-foot trailer in which we lived, and 3 trucks to carry our supplies and equipment. The excellent roads we found through some of these mountains were a great surprise to us, and we were even more surprised by the modern beauty of some of the cities. Tehran, the capital, for example. This great square with its flowers and fountains typifies the new Persia, created by the vision and hard work of His Imperial Majesty, Reza Shah Pahlavi. This modern-minded king snatched his country from the Middle Ages, so to speak, in the incredibly short space of 15 years. Education, good roads, and up-to-date transportation are rapidly bringing his 15 million subjects face to face with the modern world of today. The magnificent Parliament building is one of the many architectural monuments to Shah Pahlavi's reign. They told us in Tehran that the great Sultan of Arabian Nights fame, Harun al-Rashid, was born near here. How surprised he would be if he could see this beautiful city today. He'd think he was still in an Arabian Nights dream. In the gardens facing the Parliament building is a huge bronze statue of Shah Pahlavi. It is significant that he chose to be thus represented in a severely plain and modern uniform. Maintaining the country's spirit of freedom and independence is a tough diplomatic job in these days. And here's the palatial building where the Ministry of Foreign Affairs transacts negotiations with Asiatic, European, and American governments. The Bureau of Police occupies this enormous building. Years ago, parts of the country were overrun by marauding bandit tribes. The government put an end to them, but it took a huge organization to do it, hence the imposing size of the police headquarters. The frieze along the front shows a line of ancient Persian soldiers. Note the ankle-length robes and the elaborate curled coiffures. How times change. The development of oil in Persia has added tremendously to the country's prosperity. Another important export is caviar, obtained from the Caspian Sea, and, of course, the famous Persian rugs. Naturally, we were eager to see how a Persian rug is made. Here is the first step. A skillful painter makes a miniature of the proposed design, complete in every detail. It must be perfect, for when accepted as a pattern, every gradation in color will be followed in every intricate figure. And here's another important fellow, the sheep whose wool is sheared to make the rug. These sheep are blessed by nature with a peculiarly silky wool that gives the Persian rugs and carpets their fine texture. They still haven't gotten around to using electrical clippers for this work, and you'd think they'd use bigger shears. But Persia hasn't yet become so modern that time is all important. So, the sheep stands patiently while his silky wool starts on its way to making a gorgeous and valuable rug. They are called broad-tailed sheep. In that rear appendage of theirs, they store up fat enough to keep them going through the lean winter months when grazing is slim. I've seen wool carded in a good many countries, but never like this, with a hammer and bow. But queer as the process seems, look at the way that wool comes out, in a light, foamy cloud that feels and looks like spun silk. This is the ancient method that never has been changed or improved upon. Another reason for the fine texture of the completed rugs. Next comes the dyeing of the wool. The colors are made from native dyes and there's no use of asking for the formula because that's one of the secrets of the trade. In ancient days, the Chinese tried to find out how the dye for one certain color was made. They sent a special embassy to Persia for that purpose, bringing with them gifts of great value. But the Persians accepted the gifts, then replied politely, in effect, "You go roll your own." There's skill, too, in the timing of the dyeing. Each skein of wool has to be dipped for just so long. Looking at this part of the work is like seeing a rainbow being made. Here is an expert rug weaver at work. See how he ties a knot over one of the threads of the warp. Those are the ones running up and down. Weaves it into the pattern, and then snips it off. The value of such a rug depends largely on the number of knots in a square inch. In really fine ones, there may be 750 knots to the square inch, or even more. He tamps down the knots and the threads with a sort of blunt curry comb. Weaving of this type is naturally a slow process. Very often the work of several weavers for more than a year is required to complete one exquisite carpet. The shearing looks simple, but how tricky it is. Suppose the shears should slip and cut into some of those precious knots. But I don't suppose they ever do, for the weaver knows exactly how to shear the pile so it will be smooth and even. This is an example of really fine weaving. A geometric figure is comparatively simple to work out, but in a pattern such as this, with flowers and birds, the weaver must use his thread as a painter does his brush. Well, that's what I call a work of art. This is a rug that would cost you real money. The silky texture and the intricate pattern puts this in the luxury brackets. It would probably cost $2,000 even in Persia, and in the United States considerably more. Rugs and carpets are among Persia's chief exports, shipped to almost every country in the world. The art of Persia is famous, and we saw gorgeous examples of it everywhere we turned. In the beautiful mosques, for example. It isn't strange that in a land where 90% of the people are Mohammedans, these imposing mosques should be seen on every hand. Each one of them is worthy of study, not only for its architecture, but for its superb details, such as this intricate tile work which literally covers the great Mosque of Tehran. The minarets of this mosque are like something that the slave of Aladdin's lamp might have created by the power of magic. But magic had no part in their construction. They were made by the hands of Persia's finest artisans to do honor to Allah and to his prophet, Muhammad. These ancient buildings, many of them hundreds of years old, form an exotic Oriental background for the modern life of today. One of the most beautiful in all Persia is the tomb of Mazameh, sister of the prophet Reza, who died 500 years ago. The dome is real gold and flashes like a beacon in the fierce glare of the sun. Mazameh must have been a remarkable woman to have been given such a splendid resting place. But just a very feminine woman after all, for the inner sanctum of the tomb is made entirely of mirrors. Everywhere we noticed Arabic writing used as a decoration. You see, it's against the law of the Koran for the human form to be pictured or sculptured. So the skillful Muslim architects beautified their buildings with the written praise of Allah. The Mosque of Mashhad is not only superb in workmanship and beauty, it is a treasure house of fantastic value. Covering acres of ground, it has 4 great courtyards, in each of which there are 3 arches of intricate blue tile and a 4th arch of solid gold. Only in an Oriental realm could such profligate splendor be possible, and only in an Oriental country could such a golden display be safe from thieves and vandals. For this mosque is sacred to Allah, and it would be a bold burglar indeed who would dare lay hands on Allah's property. The entire inside of each of these 4 main arches is covered with heavy solid gold. We found no one who would even attempt to give us an estimate of its value. And, speaking of treasure, I wonder if there is anything on earth comparable to this. The peacock throne, made of solid gold, literally covered with thousands of diamonds, rubies, and emeralds. It is a relic of Nadir Shah, the warrior who conquered the great Shah Jahan of India and brought back to Persia this amazing jeweled throne from its original resting place in far-off Delhi. Another part of the captured treasure looks like a bed, also carved of solid gold and encrusted with precious gems. The value of this treasure is incalculable, for aside from its monetary worth estimated at more than $30 million, it is a rare historic relic of the mighty past. Gazing at objects like this, one can more easily believe the ancient tales of fantastic Oriental splendor. Here also in the palace at Tehran are other treasures which belong to Nadir Shah: a shield, a cup cover, a dagger, a scepter, and a diamond-encrusted scimitar. Precious relics of a glorious past, a past that seemed almost more real to us than the present as we stood at sunset beside the tomb of Persia's famous poet, Omar Khayyam, and recalled some of the lines from his immortal Rubaiyat. Think in this battered caravansary, whose portals are alternate night and day, how Sultan after Sultan, with his pomp, abode his destined hour and went his way.